Namaste and welcome to Live, Love, Engage. I am Gloria Grace Rand, and today I've got a lovely guest with us on the show. Her name is Lisa Barnett, and we're going to learn all about her in just a second. But first of all, I just want to welcome you to Live, Love, Engage, Lisa.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to share wisdom and conversations, and I'm sure a couple of laughs.
That sounds good. I like that. Laughter is so good and so important. Well, let me share with you out there listening and watching on YouTube. Who is Lisa Barnett? Well, I will tell you, she is an authority on connecting people to the ancient wisdom of the Akashic Records, which is a collection of individual soul transcripts that offer divine guidance on a whole bunch of things, but including understanding your life's purpose, how to resolve conflict and find joy. And I'll just let Lisa probably share some more about that in a little bit. But she's also an international best-selling author, and she's the founder of the Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom, where thousands of students from around the world have learned for themselves how to access their own soul's intelligence to live more fulfilled lives. And she's been in a bunch of magazines and is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this. And I know that in the past, we've had a couple folks over the last year and a half, almost 2 years, I've been doing this podcast, talk about the Akashic Records, but I think now I've really got the authority on the subject today, since you founded a whole school on that. So I think that's awesome. So I thought we'd start off by you sharing a little bit about how you came to found a school on the Akashic Records. How did you first come to that?
Well, it's honestly been a lifelong journey. So, I definitely did not wake up one day and say, gee, I think I'll start an Akashic school.
You didn't? No.
No, I really didn't. Although some days it feels like these things happen quickly. But the truth was, I was born awake. I was very conscious as a 3-year-old that I was back in a body. I literally started studying when I was a teenager. I started reading spiritual books and trying to kind of figure out what I could remember and how, that fit into the world, because it didn't fit into the world and the religions that I was familiar with. So I started to study philosophy and Eastern religions and a lot of the interesting esoteric information that was coming to the world back in the late 60s and 70s. So that was when I was growing up and starting to study, and blessed, honestly, to be living in California. And so there was a bit of a broader, kind of scope going on around here.
That's true.
Compared, we had left Chicago when I was 12 years old and moved to San Francisco. So that worked out for me. Good kind of soul alignment stuff going on, right? And so I literally went on to have a whole corporate career and kind of figuring that's what I should do, right? How we often get that kind of like, well, I graduated from college, I guess I should get a job,
Yes.
Then I thought, what was I thinking? Why didn't I become like a psychic healer or teacher or something like that back then? But, the record keepers have always said, who would you be if you hadn't had all the experiences you had? So that's what makes you who you are. And I know many of us kind of backpedal at different parts in our lives and we think, oh God, if only I had, done something different.
Right.
And of course my record keepers were like, nope, that was just part of your soul plan. It's all good, right? So I did eventually quit my corporate job, studied as a healer because I always knew that was really that big purpose in my life. And as I was working, I had a healing center. I was working with clients. Back then, I knew about the Akashic Records, but when I was trained by my teacher, the the thought was still that we were not allowed to go into the Akashic Records. So
Oh,
I was taught you could go to the gates of the records, right? Like this big library, and you could say, please, can my client have some energy, some Akashic energy, now that we've cleared a lot of old junk out for them. And I'd see the energy come down, and I'd always think, great, thank you. And off I'd go. And then one day, I was working with a client, and I got this big booming voice. I got this really expansive information, and I thought, wow, what's that? That's so much more than I usually get during a reading or healing session. And that literally went off and on over almost 5 years
wow.
until I finally, a little slow on the uptake, but anyway, all divine timing, as the record keepers say,
Mhm.
until I actually finally realized I was speaking to the Akashic record keepers. And at that time in history, we were now allowed to access the records, because what they explained to me when I could start to ask them questions specifically and directly, they said we had pulled the energy away from the planet during the Dark Ages. So around 1000 AD, the
Mm.
beings of light who really are responsible for the Akashic records pulled the vibration far enough away from the earth so that people could no longer access that information easily, because people were misusing the information for their own gain. Right? They were using it out of integrity.
Yeah.
And so they said, "Whoop, sorry, vibration too low on the planet. We'll pull it away. You won't be able to access it unless you are a mystic or, a meditator. Maybe the gurus and the wise ones around the planet could still access the information, but most of humanity couldn't." And so towards the end of the really, actually, it was probably around 1960, 1970, 1980s, where they were like tapping on people's shoulders and saying, hey, help us bring this information back. It's time.
Mm.
Because we'd moved into a different alignment galactically and to the central sun or to the galactic center. And so they said, we're moving back into a new age, into a golden age eventually. Hopefully not too distant future. And it's time for people to have this information back. It's your birthright to have access to your own personal Akashic records.
Hmm.
And so they asked, and I eventually said yes.
Well, that's awesome. Tell me a little bit about um, what what really is, like, because I mentioned in the intro a little bit about what are some of the benefits. So how maybe it might be better even to if you would share an example, like when you're working with a client, and so when they come to you, how does accessing the Akashic records for them really help them in their life?
Right. So because the Akashic record is the recording of your soul's journey throughout all time, everything you've been or done, and I'm going to say especially on Earth, because mostly our Earth gifts are beneficial for our Earth lifetimes. there may be some other more expansive gifts that are useful occasionally to download here, definitely. But for most of us, it's the Earth gifts that we're looking for. And
Mhm.
so before we embody, we make a soul plan. And that plan includes who you want to support in your life. You write 25 or 50 soul contracts to be with people, to support them, to learn from them, to sometimes be the teacher. We often talk about the challenges that we have with other people as karma,
Mm.
whereas it's really about our souls learning and growing, that we literally set up these challenges. And we plan to bring gifts and talents back to Earth. And we have all sorts of plans about what we want to do and who we want to be and what we want to share and what we want to learn. And
Mm,
all of this is part of your soul plan.
mm,
So what I would say is that without having any conscious awareness of that, we're pretty much, going through our life blind.
mm.
Kind of the idea, I remember when my children were little, and often new parents would say, I wish I had a manual for my baby. What does it mean when she cries like this or yells like that? Where's
Right.
the manual, right?
Yeah.
So, so that's actually what the record keeper said to me one day, is that your soul's plan is like having a manual to your life.
Mm.
Now, which is beneficial, I'm going to say in general, for all of us. But I see it in a lot of different ways when I work with people one-on-one. Many people come to me because they have maybe had a long-term relationship. Maybe they feel like, is this done yet? Can I move on? Did I learn what I wanted to learn? And so
Right.
they literally will come with me and say, do I have a soul contract with this person? Is it done? Is it complete? Can I leave them? And so it's an interesting kind of energy, because there's a piece of permission that people are
Mm.
looking for.
Right.
But of course, we really want to succeed in our soul's plan, in completing our soul's plan. So we want to make sure that we're not missing something. Was I
Mm.
supposed to heal this? Am I supposed to stay with them? Is there something else to learn? So actually getting clear answers about those sorts of aspects and questions is very, very helpful for us as
Mm.
humans, right? I often have people come to me who sometimes have what they consider kind of like maybe a big idea. Like, I really want to write a book, or maybe I want to start a podcast, or, am I really supposed to be that public? Am I supposed to, be bigger than I've been? And we have a lot of self-doubt, right?
Mm. Yes.
I would say that the majority of humans struggle with low self-esteem or self-doubt, or, some sort of kind of lack of belief in who we are and what we can do. So when I open their records and I can say, is this in alignment with someone's soul plan, and get information about that? And what other lifetimes have you accomplished this already? So let's
Mm.
reclaim some of that wisdom and those gifts and talents from these other 10 lifetimes where you were a published author, where you wrote with ease, where you love to speak to people and teach people about, whatever your gift is. And so I would say a lot of times the kind of that deeper wisdom, that validation, and of course the healing that we can receive, and reclaiming some of these gifts, and clearing and releasing many of the challenges that block us, is of course another huge benefit. So
Mm.
many people come and they're just like, I feel stuck. I can't make quite enough money to get really out of survival mode. I feel like I have an okay life, but I'm always struggling. What's up? What's wrong? What's blocking me? And of course, in their Akashic Records, we can ask those questions and get a lot of answers. And what I find is that it's usually a variety of things that block us or stop us, especially when it comes to, say, abundance of money, right? We have ancestral lineage beliefs. We have conscious and unconscious childhood beliefs, right?
Right.
Things our parents would say that we took on to be like normal, or we
Mm.
believed whatever, that money
Yeah.
is bad for some reason.
Right.
And so we can peel back all of these different layers. Again, past lives where we took vows of poverty, or we vowed never to be rich again because we died alone because we weren't a very nice rich
Mm.
person. Or, so there's all sorts of experiences we've had through this huge amount of, time space continuum. that we can learn about to heal ourselves, to see our lives from a much higher view,
Wow.
right? Yeah, to be able to shift when and kind of validate ourselves, to realize really how ancient and wise we truly are.
Mm. Yeah, I can definitely see that that would be really probably one of the best benefits of all. Because as you say, we do. So many of us really do struggle with self-confidence and just or just doubting, especially if maybe we want to try something new, and to be able to know that, oh, we did accomplish something either, similar or whatever in the past, and that we do have that capability to tap into that again. And it's just a matter of knowing that so we can feel more confident about it. So that's really cool. Are there any, have you found any, do people have any misconceptions or misunderstandings when it comes to the Akashic Records?
Well, you know what I would have been noticing again over the last few years, I think it's become more common. When I first started speaking about this 20 years ago, people's eyes would glaze over and they'd be like, isn't that just about past lives? I don't really care about my past lives.
Right.
Often they had kind of a concept like, I was someone famous or not, and I don't really care.
Mm,
But um, the reason that past lives can be very valuable to know about is that we had gifts back then and
mm,
talents that we want to bring present in this life, that we've done many of these things that we would like to do again. And so for validation purposes, it's huge.
mm,
But also when we look at some of the blocks, some of the emotional pain, the trauma, the drama, oh my gosh, we have died every gory way.
mm, mm,
And there are deathbed vows that we write that can be very sticky and block us. There can be
mm,
that emotional pain or that emotional trauma and physical pain that make us say, I don't know that I want to go do that again. So I have a lot of people who would like to be spiritual teachers or healers or something kind of in this spiritual realm, but many of them have fear. And the truth is that fear is coming from past lives where they were killed for being a witch or for being some kind of traitor, or, so all of these different kind of traumatic lifetimes that make them feel like, I think I'll stay hidden. And it's not necessary for most of us, especially if you're living in the United States or, Northern
mhm.
North America, that we can speak our truth more safely here, at least. And so we don't need to stay hidden. We don't need to hide our gifts and talents anymore.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. And it's so much better for us to be able to do that and to be able to share what we have to offer, because when we're hiding, we're not only, I think, sometimes hurting ourselves, but we're also hurting other people who could be benefiting from the talents and gifts that we have. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
what let's kind of shift gears a little bit here, and I just would like to find out maybe a little bit more about you. So, especially, and maybe it even is in dealing with this work. What what inspires you?
Oh, that's a good question. um, I really am inspired because what I see is that we are working on creating a new earth.
Mm,
And even though it has been challenging, especially over the last few years, um, having this ability to converse with my Akashic record keepers, um, personally, it is, exciting to see that the vibration of the planet truly is raising. The consciousness of humanity actually is going up, no matter what it might look like at the moment. And so we have a lot of information that is like, yes, we are on a very positive trajectory right now. Whereas, so that makes me happy and excited instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, are we really going to pull this off or not? To have that kind of that constant support, like, yep, it's worth it. Keep going, keep teaching, keep expanding. How important raising our consciousness is, raising our own vibration so it ripples out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right, being able to speak on podcasts and radio shows and do group healing and really just expand the energy. And honestly, I know that a lot of it has to do with the earth herself. Gaia herself is awakening, so her vibration is raising, and so we are also getting that lift up. But when the record keepers asked me so many years ago to help to re-anchor this Akashic field back to the planet, and I've actually seen this happen, from 20 years ago when people would, go cross-eyed and think, Akashic, what are you talking about? To, now it being a common term, and I have, hundreds of people in my online workshop, and instead of 6 or 8 in a little, small healing center. So seeing that expand is, of course, so validating for me and the work that the record keepers have asked me to do. And I'm actually very excited. I'm working on doing a TEDx right now.
Oh, wonderful.
So to be able to get out there on a TEDx stage and talk a little bit about healing, and just a little bit, just maybe I'll just say Akashic Records, but
there you go. Just mention it.
But to go that far, I mean, that's like a whole new world.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking, I had taken a personal development workshop a few years ago, and he talked about that when we do, some work on ourselves, sometimes to think of it as like we're a container that's expanding, and sometimes, it can be stressful as we're expanding into, a new type of growth. And also I'm thinking even like, talking about how things get into, like chaos before everything can sort of, settle down again. And then you have something new come out of it. And even just thinking of like, when the caterpillar goes into its, chrysalis stage, it has to totally melt down before it emerges as a beautiful butterfly. I think perhaps that's, some other ways to look at what's going on right now, because it seems like, you hear so much negative things going on, but that's just one side of it. There's so much other beauty and kindness. And yes, more people are talking about things like the Akashic Records and healing and, Reiki and all types of more things to lift our vibration. So I'm hopeful as well about this. So I think you're doing great work in the world. What would you think is, if you had to, really like tell someone who's listening or watching this on YouTube, like one thing that you think would be sort of the most important thing that they should know about the Akashic Records, what would that be?
That your
I know it's
soul
hard just limiting it to one, but
Well, the idea, honestly, is that your soul actually does have a plan, that your life is not random, that we have literally chosen to learn and grow as an infinite soul. And so when we can embrace that idea and step more into that information and wisdom, then we can transform our lives with much greater ease and consciousness.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that is the important thing to know, that, or at least I've come to believe too, is that this is, well, there's a couple ways to look at it. It's like you want to live life to the fullest while you're here, because you don't know what's going to happen. But at the same time, I think it's also live life to the fullest and know that, especially if you have someone that you love who you've lost, know that they're not really, you haven't lost them forever. They're just in a different dimension right now, and that you will be able to connect again sometime, and even now probably, because I mean there's other ways that you can talk about that, but yeah, it's life is interesting. I'm just finding it very fascinating. From how I
agree.
was raised, things have changed, and my beliefs have totally shifted, and I'm much more curious and open-minded about things like this. So good, good to have people like you here. What is your favorite thing about teaching? I'm not sure I asked you that. So what do you like the most about teaching this?
Um, you know, partly I love teaching because it allows me to be in the flow and the energy of the Akashic field
Mm,
for many hours on end. I usually teach, my workshop is 2 hours for 6 or 7 sessions or 8 sessions, depending on which workshop, what level of workshop. But I learned so much from the record keepers. Of course, it's very beautiful to be able to hold that vibration and space for my students to live in that space of just really love and compassion, which is, not where we always are living, right? And so I just find it exciting, and new information always comes in, and we, update and upgrade the workshop all the time because they'll give me more information. They'll say, oh, they'll often say, time to write another book, or we want to give you some more sacred prayers, or different things like that. And so it's exciting to be in that energy and to start to receive new guidance, new downloads, new information to share with people.
very cool. Well, that's awesome. Got a dog who's scratching at my door, wanting to come in. That's why I keep muting myself occasionally.
Oh.
I think she wants to know this stuff too. She's probably like, let me in, let me in. If someone wants to find out about maybe join one of your workshops and learn more about this, what's the best way for someone to connect with you?
So my website is akashicknowing.com.
Mm,
And right there on the homepage, you can download my free meditation, Journey into the Akashic Records. So it's a lovely meditation that will take you into the river of forgiveness, and we get to reclaim a few of our gifts and talents on this kind of meditative journey. And so, of course, you'll also receive my newsletter, and you'll see when I'm teaching, what I'm teaching, where I'm speaking, all of that great information. So, and you can, of course, on my website, see I do one-on-one consultations. You'll see listed the upcoming workshops that are in the near future. So yes, akashicknowing.com. You can find all that and about my books and where my books are, which are both on Amazon, but you can get their titles and click through there too.
wonderful. Well, I will be sure to have all that information in the show notes as well. So if you're listening and you don't have a pen handy, don't worry. So you can just go to liveloveengagepodcast.com and you'll be able to get all that information. And is there anything that maybe that we haven't covered that you would like to share before we leave for today? Do you think?
I really just want to invite your listeners to remember that you are these beautiful, infinite, wise souls, and you've got this. So just that kind of waking up and raising your vibration and inviting in more of your higher wisdom to guide you is such a perfect next step.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today and enlightening us about the Akashic Records. And I appreciate you sharing your light in the world, and look forward to connecting with you more after we get done here. And so encourage all of you listening and watching to go check out akashicknowing.com and connect with Lisa. So thank you again for being here today.
Thank you, Gloria. It was a pleasure.
And thank you all for listening and for watching on YouTube and for leaving comments, which is wonderful. I appreciate those. And until next time, I invite you to go out and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.